ESPN.
What up, nation? Welcome to another edition of the WiseTake KBO Daily Fantasy Sports Wise Stream. CK013 here. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013, and I of course am from the WiseTake Nation, which you can find on all the social media platforms listed above, or you can find directly at WiseTake.com. We are a premium DFS content provider as well as a DFS community designed to help make you a better DFS player. Currently, everything on WiseTake.com is free, so go ahead and check it out. No membership required. Just go. Our projections for KBO, cheat sheets for KBO. We now have FanDuel covered as well. I do a breakdown. All available at WiseTake.com free. Most of it will be up after the show, after the stream. So hopefully you guys go check it out and take advantage. Not going to be free forever. I think next week, this might be the last week we keep everything free. We got League of Legends starting up. We've got golf coming back soon. We're going to have some DraftKings projections and cheat sheets for golf. So we'll keep you guys posted. But no matter what, anything you find on this YouTube channel / Twitch channel will always be free. So if we decide to do streams for KBO and all this, and right now we certainly will until baseball comes back, which may not happen, or NBA or something. I will continue to provide content for it as long as DraftKings has the contest. So anything on this channel, whether it be when NBA comes back, which apparently could happen at the end of July, will always be free with the stream. So welcome. If you are new, please subscribe, hit the notifications bell. This way you're notified whenever we go live and don't miss any of the free content we put out. And again, we put a ton of free content on our YouTube and Twitch channels. So appreciate all you guys who've been hanging out, grinding KBO with us. We get some new faces in here every day, it seems. And a lot of you have been with us since you kind of found the stream. And I think we've made a lot of progress together, man. A lot of stuff we're learning. We're still building some sample sizes. Still dealing with certain people who don't have... and we're still dealing with without the usual stats. You know, you spend all the years and years of baseball, and you get used to having those stats, the luxury stats, I guess we can call them. Simple things like swing and strike rate, exit velocity, launch angle, all these great things, and even splits. I can't find splits for the life of God, and so I think we're managing, considering we don't have those, because at the end of the day, most other people, I say most because there's probably a couple people out there that did know where to get it. So yeah, that's the gist of it. So all in all, man, it's better than nothing. I've been enjoying it. I had a really good week a couple weeks ago. It's been a little iffy since then, but again, and I've seen like a lot of you guys in the chat have been winning. Saw a couple. What was it? On the YouTube? Not just the chat, but the comments and on Twitter. I see a lot of you guys are winning. And that's awesome, man. That means that our process is clicking. We're finding the right stuff. Sometimes you just don't get the right combination. That's going to happen at times. But for the most part, it sounds like, you know, some of you guys are at least interpreting this information in your own way and using that to, you know, apply that knowledge or apply the information that we discussed together as a community. And you're applying it to your own lineups in a positive way. So continue to do the dirty. That's what we call doing the dirty. So those of you who haven't had the win, be patient. Let's keep grinding. Those of you that have had some wins, shout out to you. That's the Exposure News Network. Hey Boss took down 5th place in a showdown last night. $45 winner. It was Kiwoom versus Hanwha. That's awesome, man. That is awesome. Robert Harris says, finally got the pictures, man. Kia and Ki and Kiwoom. Yes, sir. Yes, it was. It wasn't just the name, man. He ended up being the on DraftKings. He was the next best pitcher. What was the name? Young Gun Joe. Get him. Robert Harris says a lot of SK. Props to you also, NCD and KT Dub. Yeah, man. They put up some runs. Doosan was the only team that kind of, I think, let everybody down. But listen, the way we're going to have to approach Doosan, especially when they're on the road in a somewhat of a hitter-friendly park, we did realize, we do know that their park is one of the best pitching parks in the game, according to the data we've compiled. And I would agree, they were red hot on the road, went home and just stopped scoring. And then the first game on the road, and it was against Autorismo de España, they went nuts. Now, yesterday they got stumped. A lot of BABIP. I did watch a lot of the game. I know there was somebody, shout out to you, in the chat yesterday that was talking about So as a prospect and all this. And they actually showed a clip of him from when he was in like a Little League in Korea. So evidently he is somebody they've followed. At this level, he didn't look that great. It's not like he was racking up a ton of Ks. A lot of BABIP, man. A lot of hard hit balls right at people, and I watched it for myself. You know what I mean? Oh, my boy Anthony Valencia, who's been grinding with us for a long time, man. He grinds, man. He grinds across all different sites, and he's trying to make it happen for himself. So I can appreciate the grind always. But he says finished 25th in the 444 last night. That's $444. Big boy right there. Thank you again for the stream. I get some great info from you. Kelly cost me second place and a big payday. Oh, Kelly, man. How wild was that? How bad was he? He was fucking awful. And the thing is, though, like, as bad as he was, now, Anthony, for you're building, like, for the 444, if you're having, like, one entry, even two entries, it's tough. You got to make some hard decisions. MME, you're going to have some, you're not, right? But, man, we mentioned that Samsung has been red hot. They've won 6 out of the last 7 games. They've been red hot. And they've got an interesting matchup today, to say the least. And so I'm excited to kind of get in and talk about that. But props to you, man. Yeah, Kelly screwed a lot of people. He was like 70-something% owned, I think. I had like 70% of him. I didn't have a great night. I didn't have like a horrible night, but I didn't have a great night. The offenses we were on kind of bailed me out. So the offenses made up a lot for the pitching. But yeah, we've had a couple, Kelly, Despaigne. We've had a couple of these chalk pitchers kind of go down in flames. And we have a couple really good pitchers to discuss today. So we will go ahead and get into this right now. So first up, we got the Lotte Giants, of course, and the Kia Tigers. We've got Kyung In No against Aaron Brooks, another domestic pitcher, if you will. So the same thing as yesterday, right? Lotte Giants not expected to have a very good offense. Yang finally had a good day, finally. And it wasn't even as dominant as like his last year's performances, but it was good enough. This time, Aaron Brooks gets a crack at him. Aaron Brooks has been pretty solid so far this year. He's had a really high floor. I think Brooks is like a cash game dude, you know, like... And not to say you can't play him at tournaments. He's got tournament upside. But he does seem like, even in the game, like last game, he didn't do all particularly well. But he seems to have a reasonable floor, is all I'm saying. I just got to do one thing to the salaries page. This shit always irritates me. Wanjun Choi has the same name. There's a pitcher named Wanjun Choi. And a outfielder or something. And so if I don't delete the pitcher guy, it never picks up his fucking salary. That's what these blanks are for down here on the bottom. Right, but that should populate any second now. It doesn't matter. The guy fucking sucks anyway. It's just still, it irks me. So we'll take a look at Aaron Brooks. We got Kung No. The Kia offense, to me, are kind of middle of the road. If we look at their combined WOBA ISO, it's kind of average-ish. 138 is not terrible for this league, but it's certainly not good. 355 is decent for the WOBA, so maybe the power department's an issue. I know Kia's park actually graded out as one of the better hitting parks. So with that said, let's go ahead and look at some of the actual. So we'll look at 2019 first, as we always do. And we are looking for, I guess we'll start with No. So last year, going off last year's numbers, Kia would have been a phenomenal stack. And I still think Kia is a solid stack, and I think they'll be low owned. Last year, No did not have a good year. 4.29 FIP, 1.54 whip, only a 16% K rate, a 3.29% home run rate, which is significantly above the league average last year. Looking at him this year, he's got a 5.57 ERA, but the FIP tells us he's been a little unlucky at 3.39. So it looks like maybe he's improving a little bit, at least in that aspect. But it's kind of too early to tell. 1.57 whip is still high. K rate is down to under 15%. The home runs are down. That's promising. But with that said, because of the 2019 numbers, I still think we could take a shot on the Kia offense. I really don't have a ton of interest in pitching this dude. I just don't think I would need No. So if I'm getting anything from this game, it's going to be an offense, and it's probably going to be the Kia side. Looking at Aaron Brooks, this is his only first season in the KBO, so it is what it is. ERA is 3.23. Even with that, his FIP is still lower. 3.23 is a good number, and it's still lower at 2.84. The K rate, 21%, over 21%. Strikeout to walk ratio, this is pretty big. How many strikeouts before he walks somebody, and it's usually a little over 4. I think that's a really healthy number. Home run percentage is below the league average, at least of last year. And I say last year because that was a bigger sample. But it looks good to me, man, playing a lot of Giants. Brooks looks like one of the best options on the slate. Now, I expect him to be popular. I think he is the cash game, if not the SP1, the SP2 at the very least. Probably the SP2 because of his price. And again, man, even in situations where he hasn't been completely on top of his game, he seems to have a reasonable floor. I don't think he's like ceilinged out just yet. I don't think we've seen that from him yet. We haven't really. Yeah, so his first game of the year was against Kiwoom. We went for 19. That was the highest score he's posted. But he's had a couple games that weren't like great. Like he had one game against Doosan, right? Against Doosan, he gave up 4 earned runs, 11 hits, but he had 7 Ks. Went 5 1/3. That's a team that doesn't strike out a lot. Very hard team to strike out. And he put up an 11. So obviously 11 is not an ideal score for a tournament. But in a cash game, if you've got an 11 in that situation, which you probably shouldn't have played him in cash if he was playing Doosan, but regardless, the floor seems reasonable. So I do like him. We have him in a boost based off the matchup, which I'm totally comfortable with. I like Brooks. So I'll be looking at the Kia side of this. I think the Kia offense, like I said, I think they'll come in somewhat lower owned relative to some of the other offenses out there. There's going to be some chalk offenses, but there's a couple good offenses. And again, these guys have some power. Preston Tucker, Hyungwoo Choi, Jiwon Na all have solid ISOs. Sung Taek Han, so far off to a great start in 2020, already has one more home run than he did last year. Look at the home run percentage, 1.04%, almost 7% this series. Phenomenal right now. So I think there is some upside here. I'm a little confused as to why my boy Warren Jun Choi didn't come back in my life, because I picked the wrong one. I picked Wan Jun Jang. Too many of the same names, man. We need some more originality here. Come on. All right, now we should see that shit pop in for Wan Jun Choi. He's a giant pain in my ass. There he is. Actually has a decent projection for his price. He's really cheap, but he hasn't been playing much lately because he's been doo-doo butter, as you can see. So yeah, Chan Ho Park only has 3 stolen bases so far this year, had 39 last year, so keep an eye on where he is if you are doing full stacks of this team. So I'm into the Kia side. On to the next. Where's his damn schedule? The Doosan Biggity Bears going up against the KT Wiz once again. This is like the series. This is probably the best series. This is the best series as far as matchup. KT and Doosan's level. Raul Alcantara and Min Kim. Yes. So we know both of these offenses are good. We know that this park is one of the more hitter-friendly parks in terms of runs. Not necessarily home runs, but runs. It has been one of the better parks. And again, I say this, some information, I think having some information for the most part is, and I say for the most part, is better than not having any. So I'm trying to use the park data, even though I truly believe it's a little too early to get a true sample. You could argue that having, small sample data is worse than not having any data, because you're making judgments off things that you shouldn't be making judgments off. But we're gonna do what we can, right? And one thing for sure, I'm pretty confident Doosan's park is pitcher friendly, because their offense, the way it died when they went home, is just unnatural. And the KT Wiz have been putting up big runs at home. Doosan in that first game did. Yesterday was a lot of BABIP, man. A lot of BABIP. So, see, the way I'm going to treat Doosan is kind of like how I treat cores in baseball. If you're playing a few lineups, it'll probably be rare that you waste one on Doosan. If you're doing like one, you're probably not doing Doosan because it's too chalky. You're doing two, maybe you put them on one, but you're probably avoiding them on both because it's just easier to get to the top. If you're doing three, then yeah, maybe you have one Doosan. I'm not saying this is like what you have to do. I'm just saying what I think people who don't want to play chalky Doosan do, because they had to learn it with cores. And at MLB, it was the same situation with cores. How much cores you're going to play. So we're going to treat Doosan when they're on the road, or at least in parks that are favorable for hitting. We're going to treat them like we would treat cores, because that's kind of how they've been. And in this situation, I don't see why we don't hop on the train. I know, but anyway, we'll go ahead and get into that. So looking at 2019 numbers, I'm going to start with Alcantara first for the KT Wiz. So last year, he was a decent pitcher, just not a good fantasy pitcher. A 3.68 FIP is solid. 13% K rate makes the fantasy upside, not so exciting. 2.07 home run percentage is actually slightly above the league average from last year. So I do think the KT Wiz is highly in play. I think they can hit Alcantara. They got some good hitters, especially guys like Mel Rojas, who's been a freak lately. He's on a massive streak, if anyone hasn't noticed. And we got Doosan with a shitty bullpen. Let's look at 2020. Alcantara, FIP is 4.2. That's gone up, so a little bit reverse. His luck has changed, but still some concern. 17% K rate, that's nice to see it go up, but he's playing Doosan, who strikes out the least in the league. And then he's got a 3% home run percentage currently, which is well above the league average, which is considered high. We have a few guys that are up there. So I'm fully on board the KT Wiz offense. But again, there are a few offenses I do like. And keep in mind, again, that these two teams have, so far, have the worst bullpen ERAs in the game. They both have shitty bullpens. 9th and 10th in the league. I think Doosan is 9th, KT Wiz is 10th. With that said, let's talk about Min Kim, who is the cheapest pitcher on DraftKings. We'll start with 2019 first. In 2019, he was bad, right? A 4.65 FIP, 13.5% K rate, 2.37% home run percentage, so it's above league average. And then we look at 2020. And he's been worse. 5.87 FIP, 12.3%. He's been worse. 2%. So I don't. Again, like you're at a point with Doosan where you have to make some decisions. How heavy you want to go. As somebody who builds, anywhere from 200 to 300 teams, I'm going to have 20 to 30% of Doosan. I will, because it's just I could be at that. Still have 70% of my teams, or maybe more like 50% of my teams that don't have Doosan players. But if Doosan does go off, I'll feel like I'm, at least at the field to a degree. So I'm going to be playing Doosan, man. His bad bullpens, I'm not going to let. Maybe a little less people. People are going to play them. Let's not be naive. But maybe a couple less people do, because yesterday they played him and they sucked ass against what looked like a bad pitcher. But this guy looks like a really bad pitcher. And if you notice the trend, doesn't it seem like teams who fucked you yesterday just go off the next day? I know that's a common DFS thing, but in the KBO, it's like, come on. Like, I remember LG was really chalky against a bad pitcher, and they sucked. The next day, they were against a good pitcher, like a pretty good pitcher. They just teed off on him. So that seems to be somewhat of a trend if you have the nerve to bank on something like that. But both offenses looking pretty damn good, I would think. And if you guys are following numbers, you can't really argue that both offenses look pretty good in the spot. You could argue that other offenses may look better. You can say I'm not playing Doosan just purely because of ownership, and that's no problem. You want to do it for game theory? That's no problem. But you can't deny that they are in a pretty good spot once again. That's the issue we're with. And I know, like Valencia, our boy Valencia is always talking about trying to fade the chalk. He's got like one or two teams in the 444. He's trying to do something different to get to the top, and I respect that. But again, if you're doing mass multi-entry and you have several, hundreds and hundreds of teams, there's no reason to completely fade them. Right? There's just no reason. You can have the cake and eat it too in that sense. At least have a good amount of them. So I'll be having a decent amount of Doosan. That's the bottom line. And I'll have some KT Wiz too, man. I'm not into Alcantara. We have enough pitching where I'm not trying to look at a guy with a K rate that low in a matchup against a team that just doesn't really strike out a ton. You can see 16.73% so far. So yeah, I think this is going to be all offense. I really do. I know the total's lower than it was yesterday, but I think that's a mistake, and I think we're going to see some runs put up in this game. Holla. Next up, we got the SK. The Wyverns, weird ass name, some kind of crazy dragon. The Wyverns and the NC Dinos. We've got Taehoon Kim going up against Drew Rosinski. This is kind of an interesting matchup. So just looking at the gate, Taehoon Kim, will look at him. He was in the bullpen last year, and things have changed. Look at the team, this projected lineup. Look at the team WOBA and ISO for the Dinos. 399 WOBA. 211 ISO for this projected lineup that they're throwing out there today. Pretty solid. Now, some of these guys like Jin Sung Kang, who's been awesome. He's the other catcher, I think, or he was. I think he's the other catcher. 333 ISO so far. Definitely helping and boosting. But look at this. 220, 232. Look at these ISOs. On top of that, so far, and I guess it makes sense based off their numbers, the Dinos have the number one home run park, at least in 2020. I think 3 home runs a game is what they've been averaging at that park. Not them, just in general. So let's take a look at Taehoon Kim. SK started off horribly. Nobody really expected him to be that bad. They have played better recently, though. We're starting to see them play better. And again, it looks like they're taking a little bit of advantage of this park. I think Romack finally hit a home run yesterday. We know Choi has been hot. He put up like 12 DraftKings points, which is he's still trending in the right direction, still putting up good positive points. So let's take a look at the pitching. So we'll start with Taehoon Kim. In 2019, man, his numbers were legit, but he came out of the bullpen. 296 FIP, 25, almost a 26% K rate. The strikeout to walk ratio isn't like as high as you would think. If a guy has a 25% K rate and they're real good, like look at Aaron Brooks, 21% K rate, 4.33 strikeout to walk ratio, right? So it is a little weird that he had a 2.53 and his strikeout rate was that high. That would mean to me that he must be walking a fair amount of people. If he's striking out that many people. 1.35% home run rate, didn't really give up home runs. But again, he came out of the bullpen. So it's not like he's seeing guys, 3 or 4 times in the order. He's seeing them probably once. As a starter in 2020, it hasn't been as smooth. Not terrible. 3.81 FIP. The whip has been really low. The strikeouts are down. And the strikeout to walk ratio is down. But the home run's still not really a thing. I think you can make a case for either side. I was a little split. I think on the one hand, I think that the strikeout upside that Kim showed last year, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to translate this year. but we know that it can. We know that there's a capability there. We know the Dinos can strike out. However, we also know this Taehoon Kim dude, just based on what we've seen, has the capability of getting blown the fuck up. So I'm a little like, on the one hand, I know that the pitchers that I like are really chalky. Drew Rosinski, Eric Jokic, Aaron Brooks. I expect those guys to be very popular. And I don't think Taehoon Kim will be. The Dinos have been playing well. The other day we had Moon against them. Moon did the dirty. But then yesterday they went right back to whooping ass. So nothing more than a tournament like consideration for me, just to have like, say I have 15-20%, just to have a lineup where I know I have a low owned pitcher, right? Just because like the other pitchers I'm not crazy about. There's one other guy we can try, but even him I'm a little nervous about. But so again, nothing more than a fly. The main pitchers I think for most people, at least in ownership, are going to be Rosinski, Jokic, and Brooks. But Taehoon Kim is somebody that in the back of my mind I'm like, well, maybe I have a little bit just to have a combination, just so I know one of my pitchers are a little different. With that said, because of how because of how Hoon Kim has been this year, looking at his numbers this year and the fact that we're in a good hitting park and the fact that the Dinos have been so good, obviously I'm not opposed to the Dino stacks, but I like other offenses more, I guess. But again, maybe I'm downplaying them a little bit. They have been really hot. They have been good. Maybe I should grab a little bit more. But put it this way, I have about 4 offenses ahead of them that I prefer. And I am going to pitch a little bit, at least a little bit of Taehoon Kim, for what it's worth. Rosinski was in this league last year. Pretty solid, 3.66 FIP. Only a 16% K rate. See, a 2.13 strikeout to walk ratio for a guy with a 16% K rate, that makes more sense. He doesn't strike people out that often. Looking at 2020, he's been even better. 2.7 FIP. Ks are way up at 22.5%. Look at the strikeout to walk ratios. As the Ks go up, that should go up too if they're doing their job. And his did. 4.29 is really healthy right now. So I think he's fine. I think he's another cash game potential pitcher because he's been pretty stable and pretty solid. Again, I think I like Jokic and Brooks more than Rosinski. And we'll talk about Jokic in a second. But I think Rosinski is heavily in play. I think he's a cash game option. I think I prefer Jokic just because of the matchup against Hanwha, but I do like Rosinski. I'll have a fair amount of him, just to be simple. You want to take some shots at SK, be my guest, but I think today's the day where I kind of back off because I really like some of the other offenses out there. That's the main reason. But they'll be low owned if you want to do it. They're always low owned. Pop in the chat, say what's up to my nation. Okay, let's see what we got going on here. Popping in. Harold C. Brown says, hey, you gave me you gave me NA last night? NA or nah? My bad. And I won 144. Thanks. Day 2 watching a video. Let's win again. Awesome job, man. Harold, shout out to you, man. Awesome, man. Everybody give some props to Harold, man. That's really, really cool. Like I said, I love to hear people are winning. Elliot says, cash last night anyway, better than losing. First night I faded, nah, figured. Okay, so we're talking about Sungbum, nah. Yeah, the guy's a freak right now. He's a freak in general, but there's some of these guys in the KBO that just get real streaky. And baseball's like that, but Mel Rojas is on a streak right now. Ramos, if you notice, I don't want to say he's like cold. I don't want to judge him. He was on a crazy tear, but he's kind of cooled it down a little bit. This is a really good matchup for him today. We'll talk about it, but you're going to see streaks. Like, the law of averages is going to come through in a lot of these guys eventually. Like Romac and Choi, for instance, right? It's a long season still. We got a lot of games left. But you would think at some point they're going to get closer. Their numbers should get a little bit closer to what they did last year. It may not be the exact same. Maybe it is a little bit less. But they should get somewhere near it. And, this is kind of how things go. Right now, Nas red hot, man. Elliot says he faded for Fernandez the night before, too. It happens, bro. It happens. Anthony Valencia, our boy, who does he only does 1 to 10 lineups per day. And I know he always plays in the 444. $444 on DraftKings. So he says KT is his favorite stack tonight. The Doosan chalk has failed more often than it has succeeded. And he's right about that. Again, tell me it's not like Chorus, right? Like, you feel like when you play it, it doesn't come through. And then when you don't play it, it does. Like, that's the feel, kind of just like Chorus. And so, him only playing 1 to 10 lineups, absolutely. If you want, that's within range to fade. You got 10 teams. If you want to fade it for ownership purposes, absolutely. But again, if he was doing 300 teams, you wouldn't fade him. Maybe he'd go underweight if he didn't like it. But there would be no reason to completely fade it. Why? What's the purpose of doing all those teams? Right? So, props to you, My boy Anthony. Robert Harris, Ruzinski Chocolate. Yes, sir. I agree. Elliot says, when I look at the game log for Kim, the stats don't match up for last meeting against Dinos on 5/16. Am I missing something? Let's take a look real quick. You're talking about, I'm assuming, which Kim are we talking about here? Taehoon Kim? We talking about Taehoon Kim? Yeah, because he played the Dinos that day. So, yeah, he played the Dinos at home in SK's Park. He had 6 strikeouts, 3 walks, 2 hits, went 7 innings. He put up 24.75, it looks like. That's what it looks like he did against the Dinos. 7 innings, 6 Ks, 3 walks, no earned, 2 hits. So, yeah, that seems about right. He did not get the win. So, if he got the win, he would have had an even better score. They lost 2-1 that game. They lost 2-1. Clarify a little bit for me, Elliot. We could definitely take a look at it. Curve Fantasy Sports, 75% Brooks too much. I hear you, man. It's definitely tough. I don't 75%. In MLB, I'd be like, why? But because of how like drastically different the pitching levels are in this league, maybe not. And Brooks, like I said, because of Brooks's floor, you could probably make it up with the offense at this point, or get a little different with some of your other pitching. So there's things you could do. Dinos bats say, Elliot says Dinos bats say 11-5. Kim says 1-2 on 5/16. Elliot, what are you looking at that's saying the bats say 11-5? Is it like a game log thing? I see the same thing with Kim about the 2-1 score when they play. That's what I see. Yeah, but Elliot, it says Dinos bats say they won 11-5. But what though? What are you looking at that says that though? You know what I mean? Oh, you mean like, are you going through the DraftKings logs and that's what it says the score was? My bad. Is that what's happening? I have another place I can look at the game logs. I'll tell you. Yeah, I'm looking at another game log source for 5/16/20. I'm looking at Sungbum Na's game log. And I see the same thing. The Dinos won 2-1 that day. Now the next day, I do see the game you were referring to, and it could just be an error on whatever site you're looking at. But hold up, I did see. Yeah, so May 16th, it was 2-1. SK lost. The next day, SK lost again. It was 11-5. So 5/17 is when the Dinos won 11-5. Sungbum now went for 25 DraftKings points that day for anyone interested. So just to clarify, that's all it is. It may say it, but it's wrong, Elliot. It's the Dinos did that the next day. So the 17th is when they went nuts. Holla. Stay Inspired says Saladino low-key heating up. Moving him up in the order has made a huge difference. Yeah, the whole team in general has been hot, man. To your point, you're right about Saladino, but the whole Samsung team has been red fucking hot, and people continue, including myself, people continue to not get enough. But we'll see, man. Like, I hate to, I'm sure you guys are looking at one of the cheap pitchers numbers right now, and you're kind of like, oh, that's interesting. We'll talk about that in a second. But anyway, we will continue for the time being to the next game. Appreciate all you. Please hit the like button if you haven't already. And we're going to continue with the Samsung Lions. Okay, right into it. There we go. Samsung LG. We've got Young Hyun Baek from Samsung and Chan Hyun Young for LG. So a couple things. We have a decently high total here. One thing, what do we know about these teams? LG's offense we know is strong, right? One of the best ISOs and WOBAs in the game outside of the Dinos. 177 ISO, 359 WOBA. Very solid. Samsung has been creeping up, man. 162 ISO. That's creeping up a little bit there. 327 WOBA is still bad, but they're not expected to be that good of a team. They've just been hot. We talked about playing teams that are hot. They're just hot right now. Now here's the thing. They're playing Chanwoo Jeong, and we'll take a look at what these guys have done. We'll start with Baek first because I think Baek had a bigger sample last year. Yeah. So first of all, to be clear, Baek 4.65 FIP last year, 12% K rate, 2.5% home run rate. So far in 2020, he has an 8.4 FIP. He's got a 1.6 whip, a 19% K rate, and a 4.5 strikeout to walk ratio, meaning he's not walking people. So walks aren't his issue. You have a 1.6 whip and walks aren't your issue. Impressive. A 10.64. I had to recheck this thing like a few different times, and I got these numbers from my KBO, so you can verify it yourself for his 2020 season. You're not going to see the FIP and all that. We calculate that, but you can see the ERA, you can see the whip, you can see all those numbers. I mean, I don't know. And like the funny thing is, home runs are really his main problem, which is great for DFS purposes. But if you look at the games, let me see. I'll pull up his game logs. So he's had 2 starts so far. The first one was against the Dinos. He gave up 4 earned runs, had 5 strikeouts in 5 innings. He went for 11 DraftKings points. But between these 2 games, he's given up 8 runs total. So 4 earned runs in each game. That's it. Just 4 in each game. Doesn't sound horrendous, but yet he has a 10% home run rate. Over a 10% home run rate. So like all the runs he's given up are home runs, I guess. So am I interested in LG, a team that has like guys like Roberto Ramos and Hyun-Soo Kim and In Jung Shea? Yeah, I'm absolutely interested in LG a lot. Their park has not graded out as a very good hitting park. It is a little bit more on the pitcher's park side, but we just saw Samsung put the boots to that park last night. So I like the LG stat quite a bit today. I'm into attacking this dude. Again, like we like to consider the FIP. Maybe he's been unlucky. No, he's just been bad. According to what we're looking at, he's just been bad. Now, again, the strikeouts do seem to be a thing he's capable of getting, and he's not really walking dudes. So it looks like he's going right at pitchers. He's either striking you out or you're hitting a bomb. So I'm cool. I could live with that against a good hitting team like LG. So I'm going to have a lot of LG. As far as the other side of this, we got Jung, who last year didn't have a huge sample, I don't believe. I'll confirm that. Yeah, last year he was a reliever. So he was all reliever last year. A good reliever at that. A 2.74 FIP, 22.45% K rate. The 1.83 strikeout to walk ratio, again, a little concerning because if he's got a 22% K rate and only a 1.83 strikeout to walk ratio, that means he's walking a lot of people. And again, with an ERA at 1.64, but his whip is 1.55, another indication that he walks a lot of people. Didn't give up any home runs. So far as a starter, he has had 3 games as a starter. His first game was against Doosan. He went 4 innings, gave up 7 hits, 3 earned, 3 strikeouts, put up a 4. But he was only 4K. Against the Kiwoom Heroes, he went 6 innings, 7 hits, 3 earned runs, 3 walks, 5 strikeouts. So he didn't walk anybody against Doosan in 4 innings, but he walked 3 against Kiwoom in 6 innings. Went for 11 DraftKings points, which at this price at 6.5, you can't be all that upset about if that's what he gives you. You know what I mean? Against Hanwha, one of the best teams in the game to target pitchers against, he went 6 innings. He could have went a lot further. He only threw 78 pitches after throwing 107 against Kiwoom in the previous start. 3 earned runs, 5 hits. So he's going to give it 3 earned. That seems to be his thing. 3 earned runs in all 3 games. He had 6 Ks, 1 walk. So the walks were under control. 5 hits. He went for 19 DraftKings points. His team won 15-4 that day. So now he's playing Samsung, a team that's expected to have a weak offense, but right now at this moment they're also red hot. And if we look at his 2020, what he's done through on a numbers basis through these 3 appearances, he's got a 4.54 FIP, which is not great. Is it better than the 5.06 ERA? Sure. He's got a 1.44 WHIP, which is better, but not great. A 21% K rate, which is solid. So it looks like from what we saw last year, the strikeouts, that is a thing. The strikeout to walk ratio is 3.5%. That's a lot better. That is a lot better than what we saw before. So the walks have been down on a ratio basis, even though the strikeouts have been up. Another positive sign. 4.5% home run rate. Not a great sign. Now what we will say, is fortunately for him, the team he is playing, Samsung, is not known for home runs. Like if you look at what these guys did in 2019, you had one guy that was even close to the 20 home run mark at one Seok Lee. And he hasn't even been their best home run hitter. It's been Minho Kang so far with a 6.5% home run rate. So, and Tyler Saladino, we talked about him. I know a couple of you guys talked about him. 3 homers already. He's been heating up, no doubt. But he's also a huge strikeout magnet. 28% K rate so far this year as well. So this is a hit or miss situation. I think as far as cheap pitchers outside of my little bubble, the 3 guys that I talked about, the 3 chalk dudes, I think Young is like the cheap guy I'm willing to take a shot on. Does that mean I'm going to have a ton of Young? No, but I'm going to have some for those teams where I want the money to be able to do like crazy ass stacks, like have a Doosan with like a Rojas or with a Preston Tucker or some of these expensive ass dudes out there to kind of merge together while still being able to get one expensive pitcher in there. So my primary pitchers, we talked about the 3 more chalky ones. Yeah, I think those are the best pitchers on the slate. But I will work in some shares of these guys. Samsung, with this projected lineup, has an 18 projected strikeout rate, 18.79. Not terrible. So I'm going to have some of this guy. Listen, his FIP is bad. His whips suck. The walks are kind of scary from time to time. But he is striking people out. He was last year, and he can this year. And he's at home. And like I said, we've noticed a trend of teams doing well one day and sucking the next, and vice versa. Not doing so hot one day and doing well the next. So maybe today's the day people hop on Samsung a little bit more and they buzz. I don't know. Or I'd say if you don't like this guy at all, if you don't like Chan Hyung Jung enough to even pitch at all, then you better have some Samsung stacks, right? Because he's only 6'5". So if he does not get blown up, he's probably going to pay off his salary, right? However, if he does not pay off an easy price like 6'5", if he doesn't pay that off, then he probably got tattooed. So, pretty simple in that aspect. So I'm all LG in this one. I'll have some of the pitcher, but it's really the offense that I'm really looking at. Expect Ramos to be extremely popular. His price came up to $4K. Shout out to DraftKings. Holla. It's about fucking time. Last game, we've got the Kiwoom Heroes. Please hit that like button as we approach the last game. Going up against the Hanwha Eagles, we got Eric Jokic and Minwoo Kim. Holla. So the Kiwoom Heroes expected to be a good offense. They got off to a decent start to the season in terms of wins and losses, but they did start off slow offensively. But we're starting to see these guys bounce back. Byung-ho Park started off extremely slow. He's got his home run percentage up to 5.5%. It was at 6% last year, so it's not that bad. On the flip side, Dongwon Park had a 2.77% home run percentage last year. He currently has a 6.82. Something to keep an eye on. But they're starting to play better. I always talk about my boy Ha-seong Kim. Doesn't strike out very much at all. Has 33 stolen bases last year. 2 so far this year. Had 33. And last year hit 19 homers. This guy's he's a ball player. So definitely interested there. And even their leadoff hitter, Keon Sheng. So anyway, these guys are good. Hanwha, not so much. Jared Hoying is one of the guys they're relying on. Sung Yeo Lee. But you can see their team ISO is 112, and their team WOBA is currently 296 based off this lineup. So outside of Hoying and Lee, who have not been doing so hot in 2019, it's really been Si-Hwan No who's been carrying these guys with a 6% run rate and 3 dingers, leading the team. So maybe there's some progression coming. Maybe they won't be as bad. But the bottom line is they seem to strike out more than any other team. And looking for jokers, this looks pretty. His opponent has a 296 WOBA, a 112 ISO. He's got a 23% K, almost a 24% K rate this year, and his opponents are striking out 20.28% of the time. And there's some lineups that have been even worse, 21, 22%. So looking at Jokic, last year his numbers were solid, 3.02 FIP. Whip was extremely good. K's 18.9 is solid in this league. Home run percentage was below the league average. 2.82 is not bad, considering how low the whip is, considering his K percentage wasn't above 20. It was in the 18s, which is mediocre to our MLB standards. However, in 2020, man, he's been even better. Phenomenal. 1.8 FIP. Whip is below 1. Ks are up, way up at 23.89. Look at his strikeout to walk ratio, 5.4, which I think is the highest we've seen so far. Again, early, I know. Hasn't given up a home run. So, Hanwha, I think, will be a pretty good low-owned leverage stack if that's what you want to do. But Jokic looks like the best pitcher on the slate. Matchup considering how good he's been considering. Now, we know with Despaigne, he also had a 0% home run percentage and the team eventually tattooed him. But that was a good team. That was Doosan. This is Hanwha, the opposite end of the spectrum. So maybe Jokic will get tattooed at some point because we know he's not going to finish the season with a 0% home run rate, right? Not if he pitches the full sample size he's supposed to. But is it going to happen against Hanwha? I don't know. We could check Hanwha's park real quick. Let me just, because I always forget. If we sort it by home runs, Hanwha is the second worst park for home runs currently in the league. And as far as runs, they are dead last in runs. So now listen, some of these numbers can be skewed because Hanwha themselves have been bad. So anytime, it takes 2 teams to tango, right? So anytime they come into this park, if one team is putting up 6-7 runs a day, but Hanwha's not putting up dick, it's going to mess with the numbers. But for the record, for what we have now, it is the worst hitters park out there. So it's one of the more pitcher-friendly parks. SK Wyverns would be the next that are on this slate. So that's kind of where I'm at. Holla. So yeah, I'll have a ton of Jokic. As far as the pitcher for Hanwha, Minwoo Kim. We'll look at him in 2019. So last year was not very great, like the numbers, right? 4.48 FIP. He was a little unlucky. Didn't deserve the 6.75 ERA, but still 4.48 is not very good. 1.6 WHIP, not very good. Doesn't really strike people out. Strikeout to walk ratio is not horrible when you consider how low the strikeout rate is. 1.9% home run rate. Not great, not bad. So far this year, 4.91 FIP, and he's been lucky this year, 3.9 ERA. The WHIP has been down. The strikeouts have been up. Positive signs. Strikeout to walk ratio, again, I think it should be higher for a guy with a 23%. Again, look at Jokic, who has a very similar strikeout rate. Look at Ruzinski, who has a very similar strikeout rate. Aaron Brooks. Look how high these numbers are. Even Chen Hyung Jung this season, look how high these numbers are, and then look how low his is. So he is walking people a little more than they are. Home run percentage 4.31%. That could end ugly. That could really end ugly. You walking people. Now the strikeouts could bail him out, and Kiwoom does strike out, so there's that. But if you're walking people, and then on top of that you are susceptible to a 4.91 FIP, things could go bad, man. They can. Just saying, they can. It could happen. So I think Kiwoom is heavily in play. Based off last year's numbers of Minwoo Kim, seeing that he didn't look very good. Looking at this year's numbers, the home runs are elevated. He still doesn't look very good with a 4.9 FIP. I'm still with Kiwoom. So there you have it. So like a little recap action. My main pitchers, Jokic is number 1 for me. Brooks number 2. Ruzinski third. Ruzinski is not far behind. But he's got one of the worst parks he's pitching in. And he's playing a team that's been a little more hot. Jokic has the best park and best matchup. Brooks doesn't have the best park, but he's got a pretty solid matchup, and he's shown a tremendous floor. After that, man, you can try Raul Cantara. I'm not really into that. Taehoon Kim for ownership, but I'm not going to have a lot at all, to be clear. Because the difference, Taehoon Kim had a good game against the Dinos last time he saw them in SK, which has been the second most pitcher-friendly park in the game so far. This is the Dinos, number 1 home run spot. So I think the more I think about it, maybe Kim is like a 15-20%er, and the Dinos I work in at 10-15% 5-mans, and working some 3-mans and 2-mans as well. And then the cheap guy, Chan Hyung Jung, like I said, I think it's viable. If you're not going to look at him at all, then you might as well have some Samsung players. You might as well, because if he don't pay off 6.5, then he must have gotten trashed. If he doesn't get trashed, you mean to tell me if he goes 5-6 innings, he can't end up with like a 12 or 13 to give you around 2x? But the main pitchers were Ruzinski, Jokic, Brooks, and then, like I said, I'll work in Chan Hyung Jung. I think at this point I may put Jung over Kim simply because Jung at least does more for me in terms of price. He's so cheap that he actually does a little bit. He will make a difference in my lineup builds for some teams. As far as offenses go, let's see. We talked about LG, I like a lot. Doosan and KT, I like a lot. Kiwoom Heroes, I like a lot. And then I guess the Dinos. The way I would rank it, I would put Kia in that list as well. Against the Giants. Kyung Un-na. No. And then the Dinos, I guess. That's how I put that. But that's going to do it, ladies and gentlemen. Elliot, no problem, man. I was just, no problem at all. Trying to make sure that we get the information correct. I appreciate you sharing that information so I can clarify that, because I'm sure a lot of people would see that and it would fucking jack them up, man. Freddie Little. I like that, man. Freddie Little. I like that name. Best intel in the business. Keep it up, CK. I appreciate you, man. I do. I really do appreciate you guys hanging out. Freddie Little says defense hurts the pitchers a lot also. I have seen a lot of plays that should, but damn. Yeah, defense is a big thing. One interesting thing I learned, the Korean players love defense. Like the Korean league in general, like from what I understand, just hearing other American players talk about it, they love defense and they love to practice defense. They like defense more than they like hitting, which is crazy because, come on, I mean, growing up, every kid wanted to fucking hit more than anything else, for the most part. But hey, it is what it is. But anyway, guys, I'm going to get out of here, man. It's another good slate. The projections and the cheat sheets for FanDuel and DraftKings will be up on the site shortly. Currently free this week at WiseTake.com. Make sure you check them out. My article will be out shortly after that. And then I'll be waking up at 4:30 in the morning waiting for lineups. I'll be updating those lineups. Make sure you guys do your best to get up. The lineups that you've seen on the screen and that I have on the site currently, or that I will have on the site, those are projected lineups, but they're not bullshit projected lineups. So if you can't wake up, just know that I don't just throw names in there. I go to RotoWire and I take the projected lineups based off if a pitcher is left-handed or right-handed, what they think lineup will be. But there are usually every lineup has at least a couple players off. That's the truth. So, if you have to risk it, I know some people have just risked it because they got work and shit they got to do. And that makes sense. You do what you got to do, priorities. But if your only excuse of not waking up is it's too early, wake up, man. It is an edge. It is an edge to get people who are actually playing. It's an edge. You got people out there who aren't able to do it. So take advantage if you are. I wake up at 4:30, an hour before the game start, and I update the lineups as they come in. Once all the lineups are confirmed, all 10 teams, I post from the WiseTake Twitter at @wise_take. I'll post that the lineups are confirmed and that everything's updated. And if you need the projections, you can re-download them. If you're looking at the cheat sheet, refresh the page, look at that cheat sheet again, and make sure that the players you have in there are actually playing. With that said, if they're not playing, they will have a 0 for a projection, which means they will not be on the cheat sheet anymore. If they are playing, they will have a projection, therefore they will be on the cheat sheet. And that's the case for FanDuel and for DraftKings. So that's going to do it, Nation. Please subscribe, hit the like button. I appreciate hanging out with y'all. For myself, the entire WiseTake Nation, hopefully I see another takedown coming from you guys. And as always, good luck.